So this next stage now is a refresher on the restorative inquiry. This is our opportunity to sit with this person who is part of something bigger that's happened. They're perhaps the other half of a conversation which has become mired in misunderstanding or conflict. So here they are, they're sitting with you, and you're going to begin asking them some questions. So this is the resolve method of using restorative practice to allow this individual some time for reflection and consideration of the fact that, well, this incident is mine. And an empowering opportunity too, isn't it? To own this and have a hand in its resolution. Because the essence of this restorative practice is that individuals are afforded ownership of incidents, participation in the resolution of them, and through that, an opportunity to address any harm that's been caused, and also revisit this relationship and reach for a rebalancing again of who these two people are to each other. Be that in a professional context, the workplace, whatever. They are now in relationship, if not beforehand, definitely now because they have shared this experience. So the first question we ask, and you'll remember from your Resolve handbooks, we have the questions listed there. So on page 16 of your books, you know that the questions are here, but let's just quickly run through them now. Often we refer to this as the first part of the dance. This is you sitting with the individual and running through the questions in a manner of curious inquirer, non-judgmental. So beginning, you mine the incident and you ask, what happened? This is their chance to tell their story. As the narrative runs, you'll know when you've heard enough. We only ask this because ultimately we are keen to hear, why does this matter? What's the impact that this has had on you? Which of course is the feeling question, but ahead of that we ask, what were you thinking about? Because in asking for their thoughts, that often better enables them to talk about the feeling they had. For instance, if we say, gosh, what did you think about that? They might say, well, I was absolutely stunned by her saying that to me, and I thought, how very dare she? Where's this coming from? Has someone put her up to it? I was so shocked that she did that, and how did it feel? That then enables them to perhaps to access a richer sense of the feeling they had. They may then go to betrayed, demeaned, undermined, disrespected. Some very rich feelings because they've had an opportunity to reflect on what they thought at the time. So we go to what we're thinking about when that happened, and then we go to the feelings question. What were you feeling? Here's their ownership of the impact of this event. Their declaration as to why this matters, because this is how I felt. So that's you having given them that reflective opportunity over the incident itself. Then you'll recall we move to some other time zones, don't we? We go to, had anything happened before? This is giving this person an opportunity to reflect back ahead of the event and think, gosh, well, had anything happened before? This is giving them an opportunity to reach for some context. Anything happened before? If we get a no here, we just keep moving. But if we hear a yes, well, you know, she was a bit short with me in that meeting last week. If you get anything at all, we mine for that. With, once again, the thinking to inform the feeling. Then we pitch forward in time and we ask, has anything happened since? If we get a no, we're fine. If we hear a yes, well, it seems like there's a very edgy feeling generally now around me when I walk into a room. I think other people might be talking. Okay, you grab this and go into mine once again for the thinking and the feeling. Now look at this, we've asked them now 3 times for feeling. And that's what this is all about, isn't it? That events in our lives only have relevance because of how they impact us. And this is affording an individual an opportunity to resonate with that feeling state, to own stuff and recognize where it takes them. We're on the home straight now. There's just a few last questions to ask, aren't there? There's this one about, has anyone else been affected? When we discussed this question on the course, you reflected that this allows us as practitioners to see whether they notice that others have been impacted, whether there's any empathy there. But beyond that reason for the question, we have a bigger agenda. We're keen to know from their point of view who else is affected, because this might determine who's going to attend the meeting ultimately. And we don't declare that to them because it could be a little too much information right now. But we are keen to hear, because if they say it's a woman on the ward and she says, well, my husband's so angry about what's happened. We need to know that because perhaps he needs to be part of this bigger picture too. Once you've heard the answer to anyone else affected, we come in for really what is a big question. It's a summary of all this. We say to the person, right, so given that all of this has happened for you, how are you left feeling now? This is their stock take really on the cumulative impact of having walked with this. And it could be that here they felt furious, that here they were just a bit annoyed, that here they were just feeling a bit overwhelmed. But it all shakes down now to their take on how they're left feeling now, the emotional burden they carry because of what's happened. We hear this, and if it's anything other than something fairly fulsome and authentic, we'll go back in and we'll say, tell me more, anything else about how you're left feeling. And then the last question, given that you're left feeling this, sad, betrayed, demeaned, angry, undermined, what do you need? So this is where the focus is now starting to shift to their recognition that this is theirs and that they've actually got a life task here around what am I going to do with this? We need this feeling question answered fulsomely too in order to inform a very authentic answer to the needs question. Because all you as a resolved practitioner have in terms of what to work with is ultimately the answer to this needs question. So these feeling answers are very important. And you'll remember we did a task in the course where we unpicked, is that a thought or is it a feeling? So in your practice at this restorative inquiry stage, you will be very alert to people potentially giving you a thought when you ask them for the feeling. You might go in and say, how did that feel? How did that feel? How did that feel? And if they come back to you and say, well, it wasn't easy, or, well, it wasn't fair, or, I thought she had my back. Now, you see, they're all thoughts, aren't they? So grab them and just go straight back in and say, how did it feel to have thought she had your back and for this to have happened? And then you might get the feeling you want. Because this process will only work if they resonate with the feeling and are able to tell you. Because ultimately we're pitching for them to tell the other half of how this is felt. Because that's where the resolution lies, is in the sharing of emotional impact and the mining to have the needs met. So when you've done that, you've completed the first part of the restorative inquiry. And then you move on to the second part of restorative inquiry, and remember, it's just you and this other individual in the room. And it's you now moving into the second part of the inquiry using the answer to the needs question. Thank you.